Before we move on to the next session, I have a quick announcement regarding the PowerPoint presentations that have been projected by the speakers and panelists yesterday and today. A lot of you have been asking for copies of the presentations. These will all be available on the website of the conference, which is www.tourismconference.mu. After today's session. So tomorrow you can log on and access the PowerPoint presentations. So without further ado, we'll now proceed on to the next plenary session on the future orientation of the tourism industry. I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Nunkoo, Dr. Sudhir Andrews, and Dr. Dirk Glazer for this session, and also Professor Lipman as moderator.
Dirk, we thought you might like to join us. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is, it seems, the final plenary session, and I am not going to make any grand introduction. The process that we have today is a simple process. Our friend Robin is going to, and I'm not going to introduce all of the panelists because you've heard them all introduced before. Our friend Robin is going to give some impressions of the conference, his summary, if you like, in a general way of what has been discussed. There has been circulated a conference declaration which will be dealt with after this session, but this is to be seen as a kind of lead-in to the presentation of the declaration. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask Robin to take the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like when I was asked to do this session on the future orientation on tourism, I was thinking of how do I go about and what's the best way to summarize the deliberation we had over the 2 days, including today as well. And what obviously you'll find is you will have heard the same words in most of the presentation. Okay, the message delivered, okay, was promoting sustainable tourism, but in different ways, in different languages, and in different jargons. So what I've done, I've been sitting in most of the presentation and trying to dig up the keywords that was used. Okay, and these are the keywords that have been mentioned in most of the presentation. Okay, and obviously given the theme of the conference, it was obviously destination, sustainability, and technology were the most mentioned words. Okay, and obviously this is not surprising given the theme of the conference. But interestingly, there's lots of surrounding words in that. I call them supporting words, like technology, vision, biodiversity, artificial intelligence, you have culture, you have the environment, you have resources. Okay, and you like it or not, in one way or the other, they all go back to the triple bottom line of sustainability. Okay, they all summarize, okay, the principles of sustainable tourism. Okay, and obviously the bigger the words in here, the more popular they were among the delegates, among the speakers. Now, what I've also done, and probably to summarize what has been said over the 2 days, is try to dig up the major themes that have come out. And those major themes, incidentally, are what market research talks about, or what all organizations are working towards, and I call them the mega trends. I think Philip Taylor yesterday mentioned those mega trends, and I think it's the hot topic in the literature now, in the marketing research literature. What are the mega trends, and what are the factors influencing the tourism industry, and how do these keywords relate to the mega trends? And what destinations should do, how destinations should react. These are the key questions we need to ask ourselves. Now, if you look at those keywords, the first lesson we draw at is sustainable tourism is a multidisciplinary and very broad in context. It touches across a wide range of disciplines, from the environment, from society, economy, policymaking, environment, government, partnership, collaboration, and now we're talking about digitalization. Those words, those concepts are intrinsically connected to each other. And if we want to talk about sustainable tourism, we cannot see and we cannot use these concepts disjointly. They need to be integrated in one to talk about, to inform policymaking, okay, to inform destination management strategies. And this is what I've mentioned in here. It touches on a wide range of aspects, technology, policy, and the key for us today, and the key for all destination managers, the key for all tourism policymakers is to understand how those impact on the future. Okay, and what does the future look like? And it's kind of doing a little bit of crystal balling in terms of how do we react to the future. Okay, and now the first thing that was mentioned in many of the presentation is everything we do, all policy that we make, they are demand-driven. Okay, and this raises the fundamental question as to where does the demand come from? Okay, and the first mega trend, therefore, is wealth. Because when you look at travel, when you look at tourism in its different forms, in its different patterns, it's driven by economic growth. And economic growth has always remained the traditional determinant of demand. It's not something new, I'm telling you today. Okay, but what's new is how the world economy power is shifting, because that will have implication for our markets. Our traditional markets may not be our traditional markets anymore in the near future. Okay, so the first thing to understand is how the world economic power is shifting, and this is the forecast of UNWTO, and obviously you'll find that you have America. That's the growth potential of that market. You've got Europe, you've got the Middle East, you've got Asia Pacific, and you've got Africa. Okay, and all the markets are growing, and obviously one of the responsible factors is economic growth, better prosperity, coupled with increased leisure time. Now, interestingly, out of those growth opportunities, I'll come back to that slide in a minute, when we look at the G20 countries, okay, which are the major drivers, the major market for tourist-generating markets, the economy of those G20 countries is expected to grow at an annual rate of 3.5%, okay, from 38 trillion to around 160 trillion in 2050 in real dollar terms. Now, interestingly, this is where I talk about the shifting economic power. Interestingly, 60% of that expansion would come from the BRIC countries. Now, I've used the term BRIC, but when you look at the literature, new market research, there's also, you add the word M in it, M-BRIC countries where Mexico come in as well. Okay, they will be the major generating market. They are already. But these are where the growth potential are. These are where destinations should tap. And the M-BRIC countries will increasingly become important outbound travelers, and as I said, okay, economic growth is the responsible factor. So obviously destination marketing strategies, tourism policy making should take into account those issues that are likely to change in the future. The visitor economy obviously will change. Okay, we're talking about consumerism now. Okay, and there's one thing that's extremely very important when we talk about travel demand and how is that changing. Decades back, tourism was competing with other home-based leisure activities. Okay, instead of going on a holiday, I could obviously spend that money buying a new set of TV, buying a new video game set, so different types of leisure activities. So there was always that substitution between tourism and other leisure-based activities. But this is changing now. And research indicates that travelers now, or individuals now, choose tourism as the first opportunity. Okay, it's obviously, when you look at the market research report, it's the #1 product that they want to investigate, that they want to invest in. And I think that has implication for markets, that has implication for demand, and that has implication for marketing strategy. And we cannot talk about shifting economic power without linking that to demographics. Okay, so demographic change, the aging population present another opportunity. Okay, now obviously, I think it's known that when you talk about the aging population, they have high disposable income and disposable leisure time as well. okay, which are the two major determinants of travel. I'm not saying motivator of travel, I'm talking about the determinant of travel. If you don't have leisure time, if you don't have money, you don't travel no matter how motivated you are to travel. Okay, now, there are some studies, very futuristic study, that the guy, Ian Yeoman, from Victoria University, he wrote a book on the future of tourism. And one of the research that he cites in his book is probably, okay, with pension reform program, in 2030, pensioners in Holland, France, in some of the European countries may not have the capacity to spend. Obviously, there's more research needed into that, but I think wealth is a major thing that the future needs to take into account. Technology, we cannot miss that. The whole raison d'etre of this conference. Okay, the second trend is technology. I've got two things in here when I'm talking about technology. I've got internet-based platform in here, and I've got, this is an example of a floating hotel. Okay, now, when we look at the relationship between technology and tourism, it goes back around 20 years. Okay, but you think about it, 20 years, okay, is a very short time in the history of mankind. It's very, very short. But the impact of technology, we all know that technology has revolutionized the tourism and hospitality industry. We are doing things now. The way we do it has changed completely, has changed drastically in just 20 years. And think about what's going to happen in the next 20 years. Okay? Now, obviously, when we're talking about technology in here, I am a strong advocate of looking at technology also from a societal perspective. Think about us, all of us today. Okay, I would want us to think, I would want you all to think about how technology relates to ourselves. Our everyday life is embedded in technology. Who we are, who we want to become is shaped by technology. And that has implication to travel, which obviously I'll talk about in a minute. Okay, and obviously the world, the tourist world is shrinking because of technology. It's bridging the gap between time and space. Okay, and I think most importantly, we've talked about throughout this conference in the role of technology in promoting sustainable tourism. And these are the different ways, some of the ways that tourism promotes sustainable tourism. And I think many of our speakers, okay, Dr. Glaser mentioned in the morning about local community involvement. A couple of presentations also talk about local community involvement. And I've given you an example in here how community informatics can promote local community involvement. And one of the principles of sustainable tourism, okay, is to involve local community in decision-making, is to empower local community in decision-making. Okay, so there's a whole range of spheres in which technology can be applied. So we've got lots of potential. Okay, most of the presentation, if not all, emphasize the uses of technology, okay, in promoting sustainable tourism in its different ways. Now, there's one missing link though. Okay, if technology has the potential of promoting sustainable tourism, what if can also generate unsustainable tourism behaviors? And this is something that I think we need to reflect on. It wouldn't do justice to delegate in this conference and to the conference theme if we do not talk about the potential role of technology in promoting unsustainable tourism behaviors. Now, to do that, the other side of the technology, I'll talk about the different internet-based platforms that exist. So you've got online reservation sites, you've got sharing and peer-to-peer marketplace, you've got evaluation, opinion, and obviously advice-based site, and the last one obviously is traveler's identity. And look at the number of users. And this is for 2015, it's going to almost double in the next 10 years. Okay, and what is, however, the implication of that? And the implication of that to me is it's going to influence travel behavior. Well, it has the potential, obviously, it will influence travel behavior by encouraging pro-travel and behaviors, pro-environmental behaviors, but I think it would also encourage less environmental behavior. This is just a screenshot of flightmemory.com. And what does it do? You record your flight time, your flight hour, the number of days you've flown, and what this means for us as individuals. How do we relate to that as individuals? We relate to that, and I think those platforms are glamorizing travel and tourism. Okay, and when you think about mobility now, okay, it's strongly associated with social status. Mobility defines who we are. Traditionally, our social status was expressed through luxury products, cars, yachts. But now, travel behavior exemplifies social status. Okay? We try to manifest our social status by saying how much have we flown, how long have we flown, to how many destinations we've been to. And what this means, it means that we are expressing, okay, those social status through social media. And is that a good thing? I don't know. But obviously, when you look at this, there's a certain group of research that have started looking at the impact of technology and travel behaviors. Now, if we are using those social sites to glamorize travel, okay, does that lead to more travel or less travel? And I think it leads to more travel because when you look at flight memory, for example, it says allowing people to register flights and to compare one's travel. So it's leading to competitive behaviors. And because it's leading to competitive behaviors, that would foster travel. So more travel, more transport, more CO2 emissions. And I think we need to take a very nuanced perspective when we talk about the role of technology and sustainable tourism. That's one thing. Traveler's identity again. Okay, when we talk about, a good example is Facebook. Okay, where we express our identities as travelers. Okay, we kind of show off through these sites. And our identity as travelers are highly related to those social media platforms. And this is what is being called in the literature as liquid identity. Okay, those identity moves, they change, and they define who we are. I've mentioned that before. Okay, and when you look at environmental psychology literature, evidence from psychology, where identities is at stake, it's very difficult to get people to engage in pro-environmental behaviors. Okay, and I've mentioned that social media are those powerful agents of empowering, of fostering identity, but obviously leading to growth in transport, and how far do we change that? Okay, and I've mentioned where identity is concerned, there's less room for change. So that's the downside of social media as well. Airbnb. Okay, we've talked about that yesterday. There was an interesting question about how those peer-to-peer marketplaces online are giving rise to new businesses, and obviously, which is a good thing. Okay, so when we talk about those competitive marketplaces, you promote economic sustainability in one hand, because you've got new businesses coming in, new opportunities for local people, and from a sustainability perspective as well, it encourages host community contact. It provides more authentic experiences to the traveler, okay, because of the high interaction between the local people and the tourist population. But obviously, there's also the downside of it. It's taking up revenues from established businesses, okay, to other businesses. Okay, but someone said yesterday, this is how the world is. But I think we need to give due consideration to the challenges of technology for economic sustainability as well. TripAdvisor. The Green Leader program of TripAdvisor. Okay, I think very important influence on sustainability as well. For example, TripAdvisor assigned bronze, silver, and gold program to hotels participating in its environmental program. Okay, Atmosphere Airline Index as well. I think Professor Lippmann talked about we need to measure it. Okay, we need to measure emissions. We need to measure the impact, and this is what Atmosphere Airline Index does. Okay, it ranks airline basis on their CO2 emissions. Now, on a very positive side, okay, this raises more environmental conscious travelers. They take note, they make more sustainable choices. Okay, so again, the link between IT and tourism, as we've seen throughout the conference, should be seen as antipodal. Okay, they promote sustainability, but they can also be a challenge for sustainable development. The third mega trend that's been talking about, the third major theme that comes out of the deliberation we had over the 2 days is sustainability and resources. Now, you like it or not, we are already talking about sustainable tourism in an era where we are already unsustainable. And if you think about it, the current growth of tourism, we're all talking about growth, more airlines, more hotels, more departures, more arrival, more takeoff.
Okay, for any reasonable future, the current growth of tourism is already unsustainable. So we are working not with a zero baseline, but with a negative baseline already. Okay, and serious threat to climate change, which is a major debate, okay, that was deliberated over the 2 days of the conference. Professor Lippmann and several others, Professor Richard Butler, talked about climate change as a threat. Okay, and obviously within 1.6 international billion travelers, and the threat to climate change is serious, guys. The threat to climate change needs to be dealt with. Several researchers, I've got Dubois et al. In here, they conducted a research. They developed different transport scenarios to find out which one would be the most sustainable mode of transport. And the conclusion they've come up is frightening. Okay, and this is the conclusion what they come up with. Tourism transport sectors are required to reduce emission by a percentage as high in all economic sectors. Even though tourism contributes to around 5% to CO2 emission, okay, we need to perform in such a way that we reduce our CO2 emission compared to other sectors as well, like other sectors would do. And the conclusion with air transport will have to go slower, guys. But is this going to happen? No. And we are talking about increasing air transport. But obviously, this is where the low impact travel comes into play, which obviously Professor Lippmann talked about. Now, just imagine for a minute that all the policies, all the climate change mitigation strategies we are talking about today fails in the near future. What's likely to happen? Okay, and climate change policy is difficult to enact because obviously its unpredictability. Climate is probably one of the most difficult science to predict. You've got lots of factors modeling in. Okay, long-term timeframes. Okay, and very often policy making in many countries are government bound. Government changes, policy changes. Okay, so that's again a big threat as well. Lack of directly tangible consequences. We know what are the consequences, but how do we measure them? What are the sustainability indicators are we measuring to look at the impact of climate change? And who are the villains? People know travelers are, but they are not the only villains. They are not the only stakeholder in the industry. Who are the others? How can we identify them? How can we assign responsibility to them? And that's another big challenge. And obviously the cost of dealing with climate change policy, that's obviously a very big threat to climate change enactment policies. And international community, guys, okay, Professor Lippmann talked about Donald Trump, his good friend. Okay, he hasn't shown any commitment to climate change, and if the US is doing that, what can we expect other countries to do? So you have lots of discrepancies in international relations, international policy making as well. And do we have enough commitment from the tourism industry? That's the question we need to ask as well. Now, when we look at climate change, when we look at tourism and sustainability, we also need to look at the other side of the coin. I think this is something that Dr. Cabrini mentioned in his slide in the morning. Tourism is not only contributing to climate change, but is also impacted by climate change. And these are the impacted area. This is a map I got from a presentation made by Daniel Scott from the University of Waterloo in Canada. So these are the areas. I think we talked about knowledge-based decision-making. We talked about evidence-based decision-making, but in here, when it comes to climate change effect, we do not have enough evidence. We do not have enough information to work with. And these are the potential areas, the red one, or the hot spot, where climate change impact would be high. Okay, just to give you an example, in the Indian Ocean, you have increase in extreme events. Mauritius is an example of extreme event, flash floods, tsunami, and several countries in the Indian Ocean. Okay, so we've got lots to do when it comes to climate change. So I think this is the bigger picture of how this is going to impact on the tourism industry in terms of changing travel patterns, in terms of different types of travelers coming up as well. Oil. Think about an industry without oil. Can we think about a tourism industry without oil? Okay, and we've already talked about the peak oil. Peak oil doesn't mean oil depletion. It means that the point at which the resources, the oil resources, start being reducing. And this graph was introduced by Marion King Hubbard in 1956 in a paper he published. He's a geologist. Okay, the peak oil was reached in the year 2000. And as of now, we're experiencing a decline in the oil reserve. How did that impact on tourism needs to be given due consideration, because it's going to change things. It's going to change things, the way we do tourism, the way we act as tourists. And obviously, we cannot talk about sustainability without talking about travelers' behavior. Okay, now the question is, are travelers ready, okay, to choose more environmentally sustainable options? Professor Butler has mentioned that no, they are not ready to make compromise. Okay, so how do we do for that? Because fundamentally, if our behavior do not change, nothing changes. It all goes back to our behavior. And some researchers even claim that should we not discourage unnecessary travel? Now, how do we define unnecessary travel? Who are those unnecessary travelers? I think it depends on how we see ourselves as travelers. Are we ready to make that compromise? Are we ready to cut down on our flights? Are we ready to cut down on our travel and our holiday? Probably not. Now, it also means rethinking about sustainable development. And these are the two models of sustainable development, and this is the most common one, the triple bottom line of sustainability: economy, environment, and society. But this model indirectly also implies that you will still have an economy without environment, you will still have a society without environment. But I think that needs to change. Okay, I think we need to start thinking in favor of the nested model of sustainable development, because society depends on the environment, and both economy and society depends on the environment. If there's no environment, there's no society, there's no economy. So this further states why we should put environmental consideration in front of many other considerations. Now, the other things that's happening now, which is extremely very important, is how the three mega trends are shaping travel behaviors. Travelers are increasingly becoming complex. They are increasingly becoming sophisticated. With wealth, economic power, you have new types of travelers. Now, research conducted by Amadeus, which is also used by WTTC, project there's 6 new traveler personalities. Okay, simplicity searcher, reward hunter, and I think these are what they're looking for. The simplicity searchers, they are still willing to let all their travel decision to a third party. Okay, this is what they're looking. You have the reward hunter, which is the luxury travel market. They are the key target for the luxury travel market. Social capital seeker are those that are driven by social media behaviors. They are largely influenced by what their peers are doing. They are largely influenced by what's happening on the social media. The cultural purist, okay, looking for a cultural experience. And I always say that these people are always looking for the edutainment, not entertainment only. Educational component with the entertainment part. So these are the new travelers. And obviously you've got the ethical traveler who puts environmental consideration in front of any other consideration. Now, there are potential for ensuring that these travelers promote sustainable behaviors, but there's also the danger that they engage in unsustainable behaviors as well. And I think we need to reflect on that. Now, I think preparing for the mega trend is understanding that mobility is now considered to be as hypermobility. Travel is an addictive product now. It's like drugs, it's like sex, it's like cigarettes, it's addictive. So understanding and recognizing that the relationship between tourism and information technology or digitalization is antipodal. They are the good things and they're the bad things, and I think destination is the right time now for Mauritius and for several of the destinations to think about the dual relationship between the two concepts. And obviously nothing new in here, long-term planning, clear strategic visioning, collaboration, partnership, and I think this is what most of the presenters emphasize on, involvement of local community. Dr. Glaser in the morning talked about scenario-based planning. Because we are dealing with such complex things now, having one master plan is not enough. Having a single policy is not enough. Scenario-based planning where you can feed in all the data, different scenarios for the better management of our resources, for the better management of the destination. And I think we need to change. Destination needs to change because they are very often reluctant to change. Okay, as long as numbers are concerned, they are not reluctant to change that. And I think, to conclude, we should remember the future. We should take into account those trends and sit down and see what's the implication for us, what's the implication for policy making, and what's the implication for destinations. So thank you very much. It's not simple, but I've tried to summarize that. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you.
I was doing great till you said that travel is like sex. I thought you might want to elaborate on that a bit more. Apparently not. Our next speaker is Dr. Sudhir Andrews, who's a partner and the managing director in the SkillMaker Consultancy in India. And I said I wasn't going to introduce the panelists, but I erred because Dr. Andrews hasn't been introduced before. So I will tell you that he is a decorated hospitality educationist and an author. He's the author of 11 hospitality books, and he has received awards for his contribution to hospitality education in India. And all of us who've been in India know that it has some of the finest hospitality in the world. The floor is yours, sir. You're also free to comment on Robin's linkage between travel and sex, if that falls within your remit.
Well, Dr. Lipton had told me very strictly that I have to do it in 15 minutes. So here's my watch.
That wasn't a comment, was it?
Well, good afternoon, gentlemen and ladies. I repeat again, good afternoon, gentlemen and ladies. Well, that was not the point. I have disrupted the way we wish an audience. It is usually ladies and gentlemen. But I have chosen to wish you gentlemen and ladies. What I have done is basically got it into my mind, the digital age mind, where everything has to be looked at with a microscope and see how we can change things. It is like a tree or a plant that many people may think that I want to be digital. So it's like a plant, beautiful plant. You're looking at that plant and says, I want to be digital. But it has roots. And the roots say, if you want to be digital, then you have to be digital. That means the roots have to change. We've had some beautiful presentations on blockchains and IT technology and digital marketing, Internet of Things, and all that wonderful effort is being done. But very few mention was about the customer, the future customer that we are going to meet. And I'm going to speak about that person, the future customer. The future customer is one of the things that is attached to the root, which will make a difference to the plant that is up there. I'd like to start with an incident that happened quite recently. I was traveling from New Delhi to Dubai, and I was sitting in the plane near the window, and there were two seats next to me, and in walked a group of 8 student-looking group. They were making a lot of noise. They were joking like school children, like hitting the back and then looking innocent. You know, we've done it all in school. Or throwing paper balls at each other. I so happened to be sitting next to a lady, or girl right now I'll say, the school girl, and a guy. And they were having a lot of fun. Till I asked the lady, or the girl, I said, which school or college are you from? And she laughed. She laughed. And she says, no, we are all professionals. And I said, what? You look so young. Of course, everybody's young to me at my age, but they were really looking young, you know. And I said, what are you doing? She says, I work for the UNICEF. That gentleman is a consultant in Booz Allen. That other person is working for the World Bank. And another person had a chain of lounges, okay? And she just introduced some of them. And I said, oh my God. I said, here are they acting like school children, and they were professionally well placed in the best of organizations. So I said, you're going to Dubai, you must be going for shopping. And they said, no. I said, what are you going for? We're going for skydiving. Now let me tell you folks, those who do not know India very well, that the only sport that is a religion in our country is cricket, okay? The stars of cricket, the cricketing stars are so superhuman and big stars that even the ministers want to associate themselves with them. Not to mention the Bollywood stars. So in the pantheon of course, in India we have many gods, okay? So they have joined, these cricket stars have joined the pantheon of gods. They're demigods. All right, so when she says we are going for skydiving, it hit me. I said, where is cricket and where is skydiving? I said, are you going to do skydiving? She says, yeah, I'm going to do skydiving. Aren't you scared? No. Why should I be scared? Nobody is scared. And it hit me really bad. Of course, not to mention, when the drinks cart came, they went on a binge, to the extent they were sloshed and sleeping at the time of disembarkment, okay? Now, this incident has inspired me to talk about the future customer. I learned certain things from that little incident, and that was they could switch on their youth the moment they are out of their workplace. They can act like school children and be absolutely expressive about how they feel and want to be free. Then I discovered that the women and men were equal. They were giving four-letter words at each other. They were jibing at each other. And to the extent, I would say, the guys were feeling a little awkward. Okay? They were looking for a new activity, something exciting that will bring the adrenal rush. They were also showed and exhibited that they worked hard and they played hard by the fact that they got sloshed out, okay? They were highly educated and holding important positions and were willing to take risks. They were totally a different profile from the normal Indian youth, or the professional for that matter. So, have you taken that? So my presentation is going to talk about them, and I'll rush through them, because if I have to skip some slides, at least this incident that I've given you will give you a flavor of what kind of customer is coming our way, okay? Now, I've made out a chart here which will tell you the different generations we have been through, the different societies we have been through, the different revolutions we have been through. We are right now in the fourth industrial revolution. But on the top of that line, if you see, are the kind of customers that are going to be in these various places. So we have now the baby boomers, that is people like me. We have the Gen X, the people who were born between the ages of 60 or 65, children of the baby boomers. And we have the millennials, who were born after 1981. And we are already, the Gen Y has already come into, who are the digital ones. They're already born because they have started from 2006. So we are dealing with these people. Now, I'm going to skip this because these revolutions has brought a whole change in thinking from mass production to customized products, from quantity to quality, from consumerism to value-added customer. This is what all the customers are wanting, okay? But I'm going to shift this so as to be on time. Now, this digital age, the mantra of digital age is 2 words, disruption and innovation. So when I started this talk, I did disruption, okay? Now, to succeed in this disruption, one has to have a mindset which is at the root of that plant. If you do not have that mindset, you're not going to make that plant into a digital plant, okay? You have to do R&D continuously, and you have to scale it to commercial purposes, okay? Then you have the innovation. As a matter of fact, there is a digital Darwinism, a term that is there. Digital Darwinism means, Darwin said that it's not the strongest of the species that survives, but the one which adapts to changing environments. So if we are not changing to the environment and the society we are already in, called the digital age, then we are going to die. It's as simple as that. We have to survive, we have to adapt to this, okay? So, the major demographics of this digital age is changing demographics, which I'll be talking a little about later. Disruptive technologies, a lot has been spoken about by other esteemed colleagues. Changing customers, which I'm going to talk about, and global collaboration. This is a small business that is going to be of success. And there's a great opportunity for people, the students of today, to start small businesses. Okay. So there are 10 megatrends, and the megatrends are the silver-haired, as far as the customers are concerned, are the silver-haired tourists. I'm sorry, I belong to that, but I'm sorry I don't have a silver hair on my head. But I'm one of those guys, the baby boomers, okay? And then you have the Generation X and Generation Y and Generation 6, which we'll be talking about. Okay, I just want to say this. This is such an important slide. Tourism is no longer a service industry that is providing flights, rooms, food, sightseeing, beaches, and buying possessions. People have moved from having, possessing, to being. Tourism now is a unique experiential opportunity, and some examples of that is by providing rejuvenation, adventure, fulfillment, learning new skills, or just being who you are. Like these students, they were just being who they are. I mean, they brought in their youthfulness and were expressing it. They didn't bother. Okay? As a matter of fact, yesterday morning, last morning, I was coming to this conference, and on the way, I saw a group of tourists sitting on an embankment beside the road, like dicky birds on a wire, in front of sugar canes. When sugar canes are grown, they're sitting there and just looking at that. I was amazed. Is it that they haven't seen sugarcane stalks before, or what? But it was so cute also. They've come all the way here to Mauritius, and they're sitting there and just looking at sugar canes. There's nothing else there. Just tells you the kind of people we are dealing with. Okay, right. So here is an opportunity for the new kind of tourism demands. It's no longer the sun and the sea. It is volunteer tourism, genealogy tourism, it's bucket list tourism, spiritual tourism, medical tourism, and all blah, blah, blah. It's all out there. Okay? All right. Now let's go to the profile of these things. This is what they want. Access to quality medical attention, luxurious living, ready to spend lifetime savings, physically challenge-friendly environments, customized diet foods, want to learn something new, easy connectivity worldwide, once-in-a-lifetime experience. Let me tell you about this once-in-a-lifetime experience. In the 50s, I was a boy, youth, and I adored a singer called Cliff Richard and the Shadows. I don't think any of you would know this. And I heard his records. In those days, they didn't have television, never got a chance to see him, only through magazines and books. And finally, when I was in Dubai, there was an advertisement that Cliff Richard is now 70 plus, is coming to sing. Boy, I bought the top ticket to get there because he was my hero. This is nostalgia. And that was a one-time life experience for me. And I was surprised with myself because I sat down there and hearing Cliff Richard sing, and I was amazed that I had tears in my eyes because it reminded me of those youthful days and how I used to hero worship Cliff Richard. The same happened with Rolling Stones, They came, they're all beyond 70, and they're singing there, and I paid top dollar. Now that's once in a life. Now in my lifetime, I'm not going to see Cliff Richard again or the Rolling Stones. Now this is what people are looking for. Perhaps we can create something like that here. Right now in Dubai, they have the Burj Al Khalifa, which is the tallest building in the world. Everybody wants to go there, to the top, isn't it? So that's it. Now, next. The biggest demographic shift we have to keep in mind is the woman. The women have come and taken over a lot of job position in the US, as they say in certain professions, it's 80% saturation, but women are coming out as a major force, a major power, as a traveler. They're putting their marriages across. They want to stay single as long as they can. They put their profession ahead of them. They have today's gadgets, which is going to, in the digital age, is even going to get better. Okay, like the vacuum cleaner and the microwave oven to make their house, looking after their home easier. And contraceptive pills to delay having children. Okay? So these are some things that women power has brought in. Now, what do they want? Obviously, the first thing is safety and security, privacy, in-room diet foods, multi-channels, follow favorite programs like my wife. I mean, my wife says to me, I don't want to be treated any different from a man. But give me my program. There's a program in India called Big Boss, okay? Now, she's an ardent follower of that, and wherever she goes, she used to travel around quite a lot in her job. And she says, I must have that channel. I'm going to choose a hotel that has that channel, because she has to follow that. Now, think of that. Of course, the usual hair dryer, weighing scales, and electric iron, all those things are necessary for them. Of course, they want to have proximity to shopping, saloons, spas, pharmacy, ATM. Now, a very interesting development is taking place, and that is a very interesting development is taking place, and that is that hotels are now coming up with mini communities. That is, you have a hotel, you have a mall, you have a cinema complex, you have offices, you have like that kind of buildings are coming up now. So if a woman was coming for a conference, she has to just go downstairs and she's in the mall, and she can buy her things, whatever she wants to do. Okay, and then is the young and wealthy. These young and wealthy people, look at these fellows who are millionaires, and I put their ages next to it when they started.
These are both
very rich.
representative of
What do the young and wealthy want?
my cat.
Unique experiences. If you want to get that, give them a unique experience that they can show off to their friends. So like many of them came with their girlfriends, some of them were film stars or Hollywood film stars, and they came to Dubai, and they went straight from the airport to the sands in the desert and lived there for 3 days in tents, ate camel meat that was baked in the sand, and had that experience. Okay? All right, so they're wanting fun, like this lady who's saying, I'm going to go for skydiving. They're willing to take risks, okay? The Gen Y and Gen Y and Z customers need all these things. And we have talked about trusting relationships. One of the ladies spoke about trusting the brand. But it goes along with everybody who is providing them service. Okay? They want that. They're moving away from products to experience. They want to be involved in service. So we have restaurants where they can choose their fish and they can choose the vegetables that go with it and the sauces that go in the preparation. So they feel in control, They want recognition. Though they are brand conscious, very brand conscious, they are not brand loyal at all. This is something very interesting. Tech savvy, okay? There's the Asian invasion. Some people say that it's the Asian invasion that is going to perhaps save tourism in the future. 900 million rich middle class of Chinese, 500 million rich middle class, average age 29 from India. Now that itself is a lot of people. And I've given a little bit of a background as to what the kind of lifestyles they have and what kind of interests they have. Chinese love luxury and shopping. Indians love food. They live, and so on and so forth. Process information. They are knowledgeable travelers. You can't fool them. They've done a lot of research before they've gone anywhere. Presently interested in US and Europe, including Eastern Europe for the prestige factor and nostalgia. Indians want to connect and live with family and friends. Living overseas to save costs. Want value for money. So, thank you. Have I finished my 15 minutes on time? 1 minute left. Yay. I took a mighty risk.
apologise for being a little tough from the moderator's chair, but I know there's Dirk Glazer who has some comments to make on the proceedings to date and also on the previous speakers, and it would be quite good if we had time to get some views from the floor. So, Dirk, you want me to speak from there? As you wish.
It will be very brief. As many things, good things were said before in the two presentations we listened to. I just wanted to come back to the element of self-fulfillment, which I found very important, and I just wanted to remind the audience that this is one of the big things which have changed in our tourism sector. Originally, paid holidays were for physical recreation. And when you observe travelers nowadays coming back from bridge days, weekends, they are coming back physically tired, but mentally enriched. That is a driver, and that is important to understand that this is a driver of our tourism expansion, because limiting this need or this wish for self-fulfillment, which in other areas of the daily activity can't be found, would not work. We would limit somebody in his personal progress, and that, besides the dimension, the necessary dimension of wealth, which enables us to travel, are very important ingredients of the tourism sector's future development. Another one is when we see these figures, and Jeffrey showed the forecast of UNWTO, it was appearing in another presentation, 1.3 billion international tourist arrivals, many more domestically. This to increase up to the year 2030 to 1.8 billion, and it will increase further. It will increase so much, and bringing us back what we actually ourselves have been doing before the Neolithic Revolution. Only then we were settling down. In the Neolithic Revolution, we started to invest and to defend the area where we were settling. But before we were moving, we were on the move, and before we worked only the necessary, with the Neolithic Revolution, we started to spend more time on working than ever before. And that actually will change. And we saw the presentation on robotics. And there was the big question, what do we do? What impact that has? Ladies and gentlemen, this is bringing us back to the generations which have gone through the evolution. And that was dominating until then the human desire. So it is just for us to figure out how to design this interaction and these possibilities responsibly. This must be part of our discussions in the future. Now, more realistically, let me come back to the SDGs. I mentioned the SDGs. I made this morning a statement related to the Sustainable Development Goals. For those who are not too familiar, but I think most of you are, they are of catalytic nature. They change the way how we have to argue. They change the countries being concerned. The MDGs before were limited. Now we have the developed world as well committing to sustainability, the goals, and to committing to continuous measurement, basing their policies on evidence. However, only 40% of the indicators, as I mentioned, are available, and that makes us look for other evidence. Especially important for us in the tourism sector. I hope I left this message this morning. It is a responsibility of the tourism sector to improve the evidence on its impacts, whether positive or negative, but it must be measured holistically. You see that reflected, now I'm becoming a bit more technical, in SDG 12, Sustainable Consumption and Production, and there, in the One Planet initiative, to which UNWTO committed in the tourism sector as a lead, together with the governments of Morocco, Korea, and France, to accelerate the shift towards more sustainable consumption and production, meaning decoupling this growth, this human desire to travel, from the use of resources. But here, although we spoke about that, sometimes we don't see We don't see the next policy action. We see a lot of information, a lot of suggested next steps, but we need to keep certain things simple so that they take place. And let me first connect to the panel on promotion. What is evident is that we need to promote our places. We need to bring that to the attention. We need to communicate about our places so that there is awareness. Subtle but present is the need. Well, if we promote a place, we need the means to get there, transportation. So connectivity is very often present in ministries of tourism, establishing connectivity before promoting a place. That goes very often hand in hand. Since 2012, the organization, upon the request of the G20 countries, then embarked on more evidence related to visa facilitation. Where's the purpose of promoting a place when actually you are making the immigration procedures, and Jeffrey had yesterday his case over there, when you're making them complicated and you are actually not facilitating the same means as you are promoting the place. Simple action, huge impact. But now my real point. How many of you are aligning their promotion strategies with the carbon footprint? I think nobody. We speak about that being a problem. We speak about limiting travel. But there's actually a need to understand why we are promoting our tourism destination to a certain market and not to another. And that should not only be economic, ladies and gentlemen. That should be seeing all the dimensions of the impact of the tourism sector, and it will be the next big set of recommendations from UNWTO. We need to see that in the right context. Now, on a positive side, circularity. I haven't heard that in the discussions too much, actually only in the private conversations I had, but that is the major shift of our tourism sector, and requires a different way of thinking. We are no longer just competing with other economic sectors. That is a very traditional point of view, that we are competing for a resource, water, with the agricultural sector. Examples, for example, in Mallorca, an island in Spain, have shown if we are thinking and designing actually circularity, we can produce, and this is happening over there, an impact for another sector through our own action. So in Mallorca, the water used by the tourism sector, so-called grey water, is larger than the agricultural sector, which was before competing for the same resource, actually needs. Circularity brings a different way of designing our sustainability footprint in societies, in the environment, and there is a huge need for us to foster this in policies, in actions, and in evidence. And this brings me to the final point. If we design that well, let me repeat that, if we manage that well, then the tourism sector can have a multiplier effect. A multiplier effect back into societies, back into those places where people originated from when they were holidaying. But we need to manage well, to generate the evidence the right way. And that is what I enjoyed during this conference, that we had a wide perspective on the different elements of digitalization and not only seeing technology as a purpose in its own, for its own. I thank you very much, Jeffrey. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dirk. You're a moderator's dream. We have a little bit of time. We actually are scheduled to have a break, but we started a little bit late, and I think most people here would be willing to give up 10 minutes of the coffee break to make sure that we round out this discussion. So you've heard three speakers, Robin focusing on megatrends, Sudhir talking about the customer of the future, not entirely convinced that we should model our plans on Mark Zuckerberg, but we heard a whole range of issues. I'm not going to summarize them. And Dirk very solidly picking out some of the the key communication and institutional issues of the future. I'd like to open it up to the floor. We have 15 minutes, so please feel free. Yes, please.
Thank you, Professor
Can you
Lippmann.
tell us who you are just
Yeah,
before you?
exactly.
Thanks.
I'm Prakash from the Travel Foundation, an organization based in UK, and I'm working on transforming tourism value chain for Mauritius. So thank you, moderators. It was a really resourceful presentation. It's true that we all know that the total GHG emission for the tourism sector worldwide is less than 5%. And you rightly mentioned, Dr. Dirk, that if we can't measure, we can't manage, we can't monitor. So sometimes I believe that the problem is that we don't measure because no one is requiring the data. What to do with that? No. So my point of view is that what would be the influence of UNWTO together with the GSTC, or the extent of your influence on the focal points on each destinations around the world in order to assess the carbon footprint. I'm happy that you mentioned that if the businesses are aligning their policy with regards to carbon footprint, because we have certain agreements like the Paris Agreement, we have to align ourselves with the SDGs, the NDCs, but I haven't heard one thing since the conference started. What about a sustainable tourism index for all tourism industries around the globe? This will be a benchmark for all the countries to rank themselves in terms of sustainable tourism, and this could be used through digitalization to attract, like said Dr. Robin, environmentally conscious tourists. So I wanted to have your views on this. Thank you.
Okay, complex question, but I start with a no to something. I'm not a fan of benchmarking, and I'll tell you why. Benchmarking as such is usually quoted by those who are on the top. All the others will discredit the legitimacy, the methodology, the evidence. What we need to understand is that sustainability is a process. Sustainability, especially in the social-cultural dimension, has many facets where we are much more interested to counteract the weak signals than to wait that something becomes significant. We don't want to see sexual exploitation. We don't want to see child labor. We don't want to see trafficking. We don't want to see certain things, and they have to be acted upon right at the beginning. Otherwise, you get a problem which you can't control. I'll take that in a general sense. WTO developed back then in the 90s a publication which had the title What Tourism Managers Need to Know, and that was defining the issue areas, which then later on 10 issue areas to be monitored, which was then expanded with a big publication on sustainable tourism indicators, where suggested indicators were included, and they have influenced globally the discussion pretty much. That just as a statement that this kind of structuring existed for quite some time. Why wasn't that measured? Because certain of this information has to be measured at the local level, because there is where actually the pressures are developing, where the will of future development needs to be expressed. What is the will? What wants the indigenous group, the local community to become one day? That is a process which can't come top down. This has to be participatory. The other thing is that right now what has changed since all that got published is non-traditional data is available like never before. And that allows us right now also, and I conclude with this, allows us at the international level to make cases much more representative. We have in the past had the problem that we used individual cases and from there made the statement the tourism sector is as such. That is not good. We haven't been able to link environmental accounts and the tourism satellite accounts in the past. Yeah, this is changing.
Any of the other panelists like to comment on the idea of a global index of sustainability, that kind of thing, Robert?
Yeah, I think the idea is very optimistic. I think those indexes already exist. Okay, but the problem with the whole concept of sustainable development is what do you include in those indexes? If you think about it now, for every destination, not only from a tourism perspective, but everything becomes sustainable. Corporate social responsibility, communities, we use the word sustainable tourism. Okay, the problem with having those indexes, obviously, as Dr. Glaser just mentioned, is it's going to be for comparison purposes, but then can we compare one destination with the other? Okay, the biggest problem with sustainable tourism is it should be place specific. It should be destination specific. Okay, while you can have those index for comparison, not for formal policy making, just to have an overview, I don't think it would serve a good purpose if you have one for the whole country or to compare countries. Thank you.
Any other? Someone at the back.
You have speak about the technology, you have speak about...
Who are you?
You have speak about technology, okay? You have speak about...
Who are you?
My name is Pratibha alias Tabas. I am a tour operator of boat in Ilocos Island. When we speak Ilocos Island, long ago when tourists say, let's go to Mauritius, it was Ilocos, all around the island, Ilocos Island, let's go to Mauritius. That time Ilocos was Ilocos. Now Ilocos is a bazaar. You know what is happening of bazaar? No. How we see bazaar say in English? Market. Now it is a market. Go and see the photo. Go and see the photo before and go and see now the photo, how it is. So I want, this is environment has been, and the environment is done by ourselves. We are responsible for it, sorry. We Mauritian people. We were working about technology. Technology, before tourists was traveling in a small boat, they were paying 2,000 rupees per day. Now, with technology, they are paying 600 rupees. So, is this you call technology? Long ago, the guest was sitting on the, how we say, mat. Nowadays, we give him table, chairs, everything, good service. 2,000 has become 600 rupees. You know why? Technology. More concurrence day by day. More concurrence day by day, sir. This is our fault. It's not the government fault. It's not only the government can do, it's all our responsibility. All here, the Mauritian people. By hand, as we say, mettre la main dans la main pour nous voir le progrès du pays. Prime Minister, Mr. Adjunct, say, put hand in hand to we get before. But this program has been done on the 15th anniversary of our country. So I just deliver a message with you that please, all of you, the big tour operators, small tour operators, little tour operators, work hand by hand so that we can progress of island. Because we have got rich people and we have got poor people. We're going to leave one day, everyone is going to leave. My message is to you that live and let live. Live and let live. Because we are going to leave everything. Money, house, everything. You have come here naked and you will go to, with 3 meters of clothes. So my message is to you, sir. Okay, technology is very good. I am going to follow the technology now. But,
okay, thank you. Are you sure you're a tour operator and not a politician?
Sorry, I am a village councillor since 12 years. And this time I will go in the general election together with Mr. Anil Gayan.
I've got time for 2 more questions, if there are any. Anybody got anything they want to add?
Yeah, one simple question is, it's very nice to talk about sustainable tourism. It's been really enriching since the last 2 days. But what I've noticed is we are making, this concept of sustainability more as a marketing tool than really implementing it. I just take examples of many lodging or hotels taking the name of Eco Lodge, but they're not doing anything ecological, anything. It's just like branding it to get more customers or pricing higher. So do you think that we need to regulate the use of sustainability or eco-lodging or whatever, because it's being misused? I know of many hotels, they certify being environmental friendly or having environmental standards, but in fact they might not have that because people don't have time to go and check that. So don't you think that this concept of sustainability has to be sustainable by a regulatory framework so that people pay, and whenever they go saying it's really sustainable, it's really contributing to what we are supposed to contribute to, let's say, to the betterment of the earth and so on? Thank you.
Anybody like to take that up? Robin?
Yeah, I think you're pretty right, but obviously I don't think it's government can make everything compulsory. And when you talk about sustainable initiatives, there's always the compliance part, where the regulatory framework, where organization has to comply with a regulatory framework. For example, you have environmental impact assessment, you have social impact assessment, just to give you 2 examples. But on the other side, there's also the voluntary contribution of organizations. Okay, I think it's used as the marketing tool, eco-label is used as the marketing tool, but in the process, they have to make themselves eco-friendly. So even though it's a political concept, sustainable tourism or sustainable development, I think there are good things out of it, and the good things out of it is both the compliance and the voluntary, which I think is good.
Dirk?
I start first with an academic statement and then later on give you the political view on that as well. First, the definition of the tourism product. It's produced in the future. It's produced in distance, away from the place where you are purchasing, and it is mainly immaterial. These 3 dimensions make the tourism product, in information economic terms, a trust and belief product. It's the most complicated product on sale, because when you are buying it, you can't verify. You can't verify what is inside, so you need trust and belief. And we spoke before about disruption, spoke about the role of the tour operator. Turi mentioned the differences or the involvement of the tour operator, because no longer is the tour operator the only source of trust when it comes to transmitting the tourism product. We have different channels available. Here you understand right now, that was the academic side, here you understand right now the political need then for certification. Certification, which then guarantees through a third party that what you are actually buying is sustainable. But in the future, you will see also further progress. And we had a lot of presentations here where we saw customer reviews and the context sensitivity. The context sensitivity of sustainability makes not only within the place, but also with the people, and it brings different assessments. So in the future, you will see actually that this will change significantly. If somebody says, I am sustainable, and you are then walking out of the hotel and you see that the recycling is actually not taking place, you shoot a picture, you post that. We know that from the airline industry already. How many people are posting pictures when inconsistencies with the policy are taking place? That will be the future, and just get prepared. So this is the reason why it is so damn it important, and forgive me for the word, to embark now on sustainable practices and to continuously improve. It is a process, and nobody should exclude himself from that.
Yeah, and let me add one dimension to that, there's a process going on here. And the process is that certification, and there have been excellent presentations on it here, it's been going on for 20 odd years, but it's only now that it's beginning to become a more accepted part of the framework, because there's an organization which is promoting it, and it's beginning to get some traction at a time when the market itself is beginning to look for these things. And Dirk's point is a secondary level. Technology makes things visible. As they're more and more visible, if you say things which aren't true, it gets exposed. And the next level is, it is regulatory, but it probably won't require its own regulatory system. It will fit into evolving national regulatory systems. There'll be a test case of somebody who goes to the courts and said, I was promised this, and I got this. And somewhere a court will decide yes. And then a body of case law or even some sort of national law will evolve. I'm not sure that, and certainly conferences like this are not the kind of conference that's going to change that kind of evolution. It's good that people talk about this, because in the past, this wasn't the issue that was out in the public. And I think technology is actually helping to get that out there. And one of you, Robin, I think mentioned the TripAdvisor's Green Leaders program. When that came out, there was a lot of discussion of people saying, but this isn't been tested and this isn't certification. Well, TripAdvisor's a big company and they said, we don't care, we're going to do it. And it's got a certain amount of traction. And that's one of the ways that the world is evolving. I think we've brought this to an end. I'm not going to summarize. I want to make just 2 or 3 points at the end that summarize some of the things we've heard on this panel. Robin made a very important point about aviation and raised the question, are we in a stage where we may well have to see less aviation, largely because of carbon footprint, but also maybe because airlines are some of the greatest promoters of what has been identified as over-tourism. I don't think we are going to see less aviation. Personal view, I think airlines are smart enough to know that when they are moving into this over-tourism area, they will be doing their checking and they will be changing their schedules to avoid that process. Probably not because they're environmentally sensitive, but because it's good business sense. I also think, even though I raised the question about the issue around aviation having this larger carbon footprint, and because of other people having alternatives, it will have the opportunity to suddenly become significantly large and therefore under public scrutiny. I don't think the airlines are that stupid. I think what they've been doing is buying as much time as they can. This isn't a new technique. We did this when I was in IATA in the 1960s and 70s. You create a regulatory framework which is as much as you know you can tolerate, and when you get close to that period, you push it out a bit. And I think that what you're going to see is quite some advances in synthetic fuels. And I think in the end, it'll be late, but it's a little bit like Winston Churchill said of the United States. He said, you can always trust our American cousins to do the right thing, having tried every other alternative first. And aviation is going to be a little bit like that. Kicking and screaming, it will be dragged into the no-carbon era. You made a lot of points, Sudhir, in describing passengers of the future. And I think you revealed some really interesting evolving tendencies. I think we also, though, have a tendency to assume that what the studies are showing is how all the passengers are going to be. There's still a lot of people out there who are looking for more traditional kind of holidays, I believe. Also, one of the big growth areas projected by the World Travel and Tourism Council, World Economic Forum, is Africa. Africans are unlikely to be filling the kind of patterns that you were necessarily talking about. So I think what we are going to see is increasing diversity amongst customers. Technology will help suppliers and destinations to cater more effectively to that kind of diversity. And last point, the digitalization will come faster than we are projecting, because it always does. Some years ago, Alvin Toffler wrote a book called Future Shock. Some of you may remember it. And basically what it said is there's an accelerating pace of change. So when you are looking at these projections into the future, they're a little bit like the snail that got mugged. It all happened so quickly. And I can give you one example. I was in a group at some stage, I think about 2000, in a small meeting in Davos, and Bill Gates came in. And he asked the question to the group, how many people here are paying for your telephone calls? And everybody put their hands up. And he said, I can tell you definitively that in 10 years' time, it'll all be free. And, you know, he went out and we all laughed and said, well, he may be Bill Gates, but he's an idiot. But 10 years later, everybody's using Skype or WhatsApp. So these things are suddenly upon you. I think what this conference has done is it's brought a lot of that into the forefront of our thinking. I think it's been a really good conference. I have the feeling that everybody here is feeling the same way. And if you are all in agreement, what I'd like you to do is give your applause for the panel, and then we can take that much-needed tea break and then be back here. I think we're supposed to be back here at 4 o'clock, but 4:15 or something. I'm sure the organizers will be happy with that. So thank you very much, panel. Thank you.